An official new era of Calgary Flames hockey is upon us.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and I am joined by my partner in crime, who has done a great job holding down the fort this week, Nick Zararis. Nick, how you doing today?
It's like 70 degrees outside. The urge to go outside and pretend I was still in college was very strong today.
Yes, absolutely. And I can only hope that nice weather finds Calgary very soon. But today we are going to talk all about Hunter
Brzustewicz. Hunter Brzustewicz. Practice, Jess. Come on, Brzustewicz.
No, I need to practice. I'm behind on my game. And, of course, Jacob Markstrom's injury and what that kind of means for the summer and the potential trade that may happen again as we find ourselves in this situation. And we're going to talk about who exactly the Flames are hanging with, because it's not the top dogs. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. This is a very exciting time of year for a lot of different teams and players, I would say, because you start seeing those entry-level contracts and all that fun stuff. But what does this mean for the Flames?
It means a few things. Number one, it means that they don't have to worry about his rights expiring, which I know that's always a concern when we're talking about players you didn't draft yourself, because, it sounds academic that, you trade for a guy's rights, he'll sign with you, but he wasn't originally drafted by the Flames. Obviously, he's a Vancouver draft pick. He's kind of had an arduous road to get where he is in the OHL. He's having a really strong season this year as a 19-year-old, but it's never a guarantee. It's infrequent where a guy doesn't sign their ELC and waits for their rights to expire, but it does happen from time to time. So this is a good first step.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about this, like what the Flames are stepping into in terms of the turnover and rostering players and getting them ready for when the team's competitive again. And the kid's 19 years old. He's a child. It still has probably 2 years developing in the AHL before touching NHL ice consistently, which it really feels like it's in line with where at least us as fans kind of project the Flames to be.
Yeah, the rules for junior hockey in the NHL are very dumb. I had to go and look it up because I in my head, I was like, he's 19. I know there's some weird age rule with the AHL where you can't play in the AHL if you're under 20, if you play in a certain junior league, and unless you have a certain number of years played, where like if you have an early birthday. So I had to read like an entire article on how this works. So he's 19. He's only got 2 years of CHL, which is, the WHL, the QMJHL, and the OHL, all the junior leagues in Canada. He's got 2 years of experience there, and he's 19 right now. So he's going to have to play at least one more year in the OHL, or he has to be on the Flames NHL roster. Those are the only two options. He cannot go to the Wranglers. So more likely than not, yeah, he's probably 2 years away from getting serious NHL playing time, because you figure next year he'll stay in the OHL one more season. He'll get 1 season as a Wrangler, and then we can start having a conversation that third year, whether or not he's ready to start playing at the NHL level.
So there are so many different paths to the NHL, as we are talking about now. But what are your realistic expectations for him, if any, like during these next 2 years?
He's going to finish in the top 5 of points in the entire OHL, not just defensemen. He has something absurd. I wrote it down. What is it? He has 85 points in 62 games. He's over a point per game. This is the prospect who had like 115 points in 60 games as a 16-year-old, where very clearly wasn't playing in a difficult enough environment because he was just absolutely destroying everybody around him. But suffered a really serious shoulder injury when he was 16, turning 17. Missed out on making Team USA for the World Juniors this time around. A couple guys kind of passed him in the pecking order, but there's a realistic expectation based on the points he's put up at the OHL level that he will be an NHL defenseman at some point. It's just really a matter of if he's one of the right-handed offense first defenseman of like 5 or 10 years ago who's going to play sheltered third pair, maybe quarterback your second power play, and not do a lot defensively because, he's limited in size. I hate to make the comparison because it's a sensitive subject, but, he profiles size-wise similar to Adam Fox, where he's not physical in the slightest. He's got an offensive inclination to his game, but that can only take you so far. And unless you're like truly elite as an offensive playmaker, teams are going to feel uncomfortable with giving you a big role if you're not strong defensively.
Yeah. And this is one of those things where you really do just have to wait and see. Like, we're putting the ingredients together in a cake and then we're just putting it in the oven, and we're going to hope that it is the correct recipe at the right time, at the right temperature, because he's 19. We talk a lot about how most of your skills can be like developed by then, but are they able to be refined? And I feel like, if you're an elite player by that age, by this time period, and like what can he truly improve on and capitalize on to make him a full-time NHL player? And I think that's going to be something to definitely watch for.
No, he's aware, he knows that he needs to improve his defense. I was reading a profile. I forget if it was the one in The Athletic or in a different publication, but he knows he needs to work on his defense if he's going to be higher than a third pair defenseman, because this archetype, this is the golden goose. Every team wants this, the right-handed defenseman that can move the puck at a high level and generate offense. There's a reason that teams covet this archetype, the Noah Dobson, the Evan Bouchard, the Adam Fox, the Charlie McAvoy, and once upon a time, a guy like a Neil Pionk. The instincts for offense are there, but unless you really have that high level offense where your offense is so good you don't have to play a lot of defense, teams are weary of trusting you. You think about how long it took Evan Bouchard and Noah Dobson to get significant playing time. This is Noah Dobson's 4th full season in the NHL, and this is the first time he's playing first pair minutes. Same thing with Evan Bouchard. This is his 4th or 5th season since being drafted, and he's finally getting first pair minutes. So Brzustewicz probably will be an NHLer 2 seasons from now or so, but in terms of, maybe in the top 4 or even the first pair, and that's if things go well, which, is no guarantee. Junior success is no guarantee of that. We're talking about a player that's probably 4 years away, 5 years away from being a first pair guy, if that's truly his trajectory.
Yeah. And I mean, this isn't something that's going to happen overnight, as we've seen with many Flames players. I mean, Rasmus Andersson got his butt whipped into shape by Ryan Huska with the Stockton Heat. So good things can happen. It just takes time, but we will hopefully see more and know more about this kid as the summer progresses. But coming up next, we are going to talk about Jacob Markstrom and how on earth the Flames can move forward and manage his workload without spoiling anything more than they already have. But first, we are going to take a quick break and talk to you about an app that you might like. Grocery bills are expensive these days, but now they don't have to be. Start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with the free Ibotta app and get cash back every time you shop. Do you love making money but also love spending money? Don't we all? Now you can make money while you spend it every time you shop with Ibotta. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. So you can buy that flight you've been eyeing, that game you've been dying to go to, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Right now, Ibotta is offering listeners $5 just to try Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONNHL when you register. Go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONNHL. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames as we cruise through the remaining games of the season. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Is this something you expected with Jacob Markstrom kind of down the stretch with how great he's been playing?
It's not that because of like the workload or anything. He's missed a couple games here and there over the course of the season. You know, he's very clearly had a nagging injury, and it's hard to get right when you try and play as soon as you start feeling better. You know, it's really difficult to convince these hyper competitive guys, hey, I know you want to play, but if you take an extra week now, you won't miss more time down the road. And it just doesn't work like that for these hyper competitive people. So I understand why this kind of keeps popping up, but the conversation is different now. You know, I think all delusions about making the playoffs are officially dead after the last week, especially over the weekend and then the game against Colorado. If there was any lingering doubt about the season being over as far as making the playoffs, the last 5-6 days really solidified that. So you can afford to tell Markstrom to take his time. You have the extra incentive of getting Dustin Wolf PT. I know they want Dustin Wolf to play in the AHL playoffs. That's still a few weeks away. Get him a handful of starts up here over the next few weeks. He is more likely than not going to get shelled. He does need to get the reps. It is an unfortunate situation that you are going to put your prospect goalie into a situation like this, but he needs to play at this level. And it sucks to like more or less do he's either figures it out or he doesn't. But to some degree, even if he stinks, if he has a decent, I shouldn't say stinks, even if they lose the game, 5-2, as a goalie, you can have a decent game where you concede 5 goals. There is an element of sink or swim to this, and they need him to get the reps, man. I don't want to say he's mastered the AHL level, but more or less he has. There's nothing really more to be gained from that.
Yeah, exactly. And I would much rather this happen now because we've talked about it over and over again. Like, these games don't matter at this point. This is your free trial to do anything and everything that you can possibly think of, which we are seeing with the line pairings and whatnot. It's a mess, and that's okay because none of this matters at the end of the day. We're just trying to draft well. And Dustin Wolf really could use those starts in the NHL, and he's starting tonight against the Golden Knights. And I just hope that he has a good head on his shoulders and he's not going to beat himself up too much because it's not going to be an easy game. But he needs this time. There's nothing on the line, so he's not going to have this extra pressure. Like, you are walking into this, and you want to lose. Yeah, like there's nothing to lose. Who cares?
All right, you shouldn't say who cares, but people are going to pay to go to this hockey game tonight with the expectation that the Flames are going to try. So you can't say who cares, but at the very least, the stakes are low.
Yes.
The stakes are low. This is an opportunity to get reps at this level. I talked about it the other day, he's got to get familiar. He's got to get a feel for the guys who are on this team. I was talking about it in regards to the defensemen on the team the other day. Part of why the defense has been so bad is that A, they don't have a lot of experience, and B, they don't have a lot of experience with each other. Same thing with the goalies. Your goalie, once you get a better understanding of what your defensemen like to do as far as coming back to get it, or you playing it for them, you trying to break it out, that's part of this. If Dustin Wolf is going to be the 1A or 1B in a tandem next year, he's got to start getting familiar with, with Chillington, with Rasmus Anderson, with Mackenzie Weegar. And that sounds dumb to say is a priority, but he's got to get a feel for what these guys like to play with, because if he's going to be on the team next year, you're saving yourself time of something that won't have to be figured out. We keep talking about this as an opportunity to kind of ramp up into next season with a little bit of momentum and set your guys up. This is a great example of it. Give Dustin Wolf some burn and let's see how far along he is.
And I think that this is just, obviously, yes, we want them to go out and try, because it's not, like you said, people are paying money to watch these guys play. But in their, like you also just talked about, how they're super competitive. They aren't going to go out there and just skate around for 60 minutes and call it a day without trying. And that's just not who they are. But it's an experimental time. Just do what you feel is right. And who cares about getting it right every single time? Just figure it out. Trial and error.
Ultimately, that's kind of what development is. I know we don't think about that in sports a lot, that as development as being trial and error, because a lot of people think of development as, progress. You say a player is developing when they're showing signs of progress, but an essential component of progress is failure. If you don't make mistakes, you can't figure things out. It's an unfortunate reality, but Wolf is probably going to get his butt kicked tonight. But the learning experience of knowing how to bounce back from getting your butt kicked down the road when he is a veteran player and has been through, difficult situations, that is valuable. There's no feigning experience. You can't simulate experience, man. There's only one NHL. There's only one way to figure out what you're made of, and that's by playing against the other best in the world. And you're going to get a good example of that tonight. Maybe they come out and play a better game than they did against Colorado. They played a decent first period against Colorado, and then it got away from them in the second. They have a lot of young guys. They have a lot of guys who haven't played with each other, a lot of guys just with not a lot of experience. And the mistakes against good teams end up in the back of your net. Tonight, Vegas, I know they're kind of struggling as of late. They're missing a lot of guys who were injured. That's the reigning Stanley Cup champions who expect to make the playoffs. If you give them a chance, they will take it. Give Wolf a chance tonight. That's all I'm saying. You don't have to win the game. Nobody's expecting you to win this game. But maybe don't let the kid get shelled back there and concede 50, 60 scoring chances again like you did over the weekend.
Yeah, definitely, try to protect the poor kid. He hasn't had the smoothest transition to the NHL, and I just think that's because of the lack of consistency in his starts and appearances, but let's try to ease him in and make this a little bit of a better experience for him. I'm sure that learning and being around, someone as competitive and talented as Jacob Markstrom definitely helps. Just because he's not out there on the ice with you during practice and skating and whatnot doesn't mean that, they're not talking behind the scenes.
Of course. Yeah. I talked about this exact thing yesterday. The idea that most of the time progress doesn't come in the actual game itself. It comes at practice, it comes in meetings, and it comes on your own, because in the speed of the moment of the game, sure, maybe you go to the iPad and you see where the play broke down, but more likely than not, you aren't going to get the teaching point or the correction until the next opportunity you have to sit down and really talk about it. There's only so much you can change during the course of a given game. It's more important that you understand where you messed up eventually, and then you can start to kind of address, hey, this is a lingering pattern. You've made this mistake X number of times. Try doing this instead. It's going to be ugly. They are playing three defensemen who don't have a ton of NHL experience together. They are playing with significantly less forward depth than they've had at earlier points in the season. It's going to be a lot of alley-oop out of the zone into the neutral zone, Vegas gathering the puck at the blue line, dumping it in, going to get it, or Vegas regrouping with speed and entering the zone with speed. The name of the game tonight for the Flames, especially the defensemen, will be get the puck out of danger like it's a hot potato. That will be how the Flames try and survive.
And hopefully they can do just that. And, maybe escape by the skin of their teeth, because we don't need another repeat of the last 4 games. We have seen enough of that. Let's try to just, actually stick around and hang around. But coming up next, we are going to talk about the teams that the Flames are, actually competing with and aren't too much better than them. But first, we are going to take a quick break here and talk to you about Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% match on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts so you can ride the wave with us, because we're about to enter a long 6 months without Flames hockey.
Yeah. The math does not math. I said this the other day, but to quote Elliot Friedman, I do not like their math. Elliot will often say, I like their math. Things work out okay for them. The Flames, I do not like their math. The Flames are Chevy Chase in season 1 of SNL saying, I was told there would be no math. That's where the Flames are at right now. I made a list, and these are all the teams that are either in the Flames tier or worse, and very straightforward. You tell me if you would rather be the Flames or this team. Okay.
Okay.
Would you rather be the Washington Capitals or the Flames?
The Capitals.
I think it's the Flames.
Really?
I think it's the Flames. Because the Capitals, all they've got is Ovi chasing the record. That's it.
Yeah, that is true.
They haven't started the turnover like the Flames have. So I think the Flames, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, the Flames.
Philadelphia.
Oh, I feel like they're further ahead than the Flames. So I'm going to go with the Flyers.
The Flyers have Michikov in the weights, who might be the best amateur prospect to come over from Russia since Ovechkin. So, yeah, the Flames don't have anybody in that tier. I would agree with you. The Sabres.
The Flames.
See, this is where it's interesting, because the Sabres, they have the players. They've got power. They've got Dahlin. They've got Bowen Byram. They've got Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen. They've got Devin Levy. They've got Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins. But the vibes are atrocious, and the team is underperformed. Maybe, I know they're only like 4 or 5 points back of the last playoff spot in the East right now, but that's largely a product of the other teams in the East being bad as opposed to them being good. I think that's a conversation, them in Buffalo. I think I'd lean the Flames just because the vibes seem better.
Yeah, strictly for the vibes. I'm going Calgary.
Montreal.
The Flames. I am so sorry.
Montreal has guys, but again, similar to Buffalo. Yeah, I like Slafkovsky. He's gotten better as the season's gone along. Suzuki and Caulfield are both guys. Mm-hmm. That's really it. They have other guys they're optimistic about, like Reinbacher and Lane Hudson, but we're talking about years for those guys, not weeks. So Montreal's tough. Ottawa?
Again, it's a vibe situation because they have pieces
more talent
that are attractive, but it's just not. it's not meshing the way that the Flames have.
No, definitely not. Columbus. Same
I
exact
would
thing.
rather be anyone than Columbus.
St. Louis.
I feel like St. Louis, like, you have better playoff chances and like more talent, but you're also like way past your window.
I would agree with you. I would rather be the Flames than the Blues.
Yeah.
Minnesota.
No one knows what's going on in Minnesota, and neither do the Wild. So I'm gonna go Calgary, I guess.
It's an interesting conversation because you think about the Wild, you know, Kaprizov is great. Brock Faber is very good, but Jared Spurgeon has missed a lot of this season.
Yeah.
Marc-Andre Fleury is probably going to retire. Philip Gustafsson is not nearly as well as he did last year. Eriksson Ek is fine. Zuccarello is good, but he's old. You look at that team, and similar to St. Louis, similar to Washington, kind of feels like they missed their opportunity with that group. You know, Kaprizov's not old, but they kind of missed their window with him being cheap, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Seattle.
I feel like Seattle has those young players that are like, I definitely feel like they're further ahead in like their race to the cup than the Flames.
Seattle's an interesting group because, you know, it's always going to be a little weird when it comes to the expansion teams, but because they're kind of old already, being that they don't really have a lot of young guys. You know, they drafted Shane Wright, who still is yet to really kind of have an opportunity, and Matty Benier is not playing as well as he did last year, but they have a lot more flexibility than the Flames do because they don't have money tied up in a lot of people, and they will be able to remodel and tweak their roster a little bit easier than Calgary. So I think you could go either way on Seattle versus Calgary. I think it's close though, for sure.
Yeah.
Arizona.
The Flames, simply because they have a home.
Yeah, it's that straightforward. They have a home arena secured until their new arena is built. Correct.
Yeah, and then there's a 35-year no relocation clause. So, for the sake of stability, I'm going Calgary.
Yeah, I mean, there's a non-zero chance the Coyotes do end up getting relegated. Someone might physically have to kill Gary Bettman to make it happen, but non-zero chance the Coyotes do eventually relocate. The Ducks.
They're an interesting situation because, again, I feel like they are a lot younger and they have those players that they can obviously build around, but it doesn't feel like Trevor Zegras wants to stay, potentially, or like there's instability there. So, like, that's one of your biggest pieces, and you already moved Jamie Drysdale, so I'm going Calgary.
I like the pieces the Ducks have, but I need to get a better understanding of their plan because they've also made weird decisions too. Like, they gave Killorn all that money. They gave Ryan Strome all that money. Like, I get wanting to have veterans on your team for those young guys to be around, but you could also just give that money to good players as opposed to average players. That's a weird one for me. Chicago.
I have to say the Flames. And yeah, sure, they have Connor Bedard, but like, you have a bunch of old people or people that are just there. And no, again, stability.
Yeah, I mean, Bedard's really good. I mean, he had 5 points the other night, but he's one player. Hockey is the hardest sport for one player to swing a season. Some people would say football, but that season is so short, you have a greater chance of one player being able to influence a handful of plays. Hockey, you can be Connor McDavid, but if you put Connor McDavid on the Sharks right now, they have maybe 2 more wins over the course of the season than they do at the present moment. There's only so much one guy can do. So I'd agree with you. I would rather be the Flames than the Blackhawks. That conversation could change, if they pick first in the lottery again and they end up with Pellegrini. And then last but not least, San Jose. You definitely want to be the Flames over the Sharks.
Yeah, I'm good. I am staying away from that. Locked On Sharks is a great show, and JD does a fantastic job hosting, but I do not understand what Mike Greer is doing, and I don't know if he knows what he's doing either.
I have one last team for you.
Oh, no.
Would you rather be the Pittsburgh Penguins or the Calgary Flames?
Well, the Flames aren't getting their bobblehead stolen, so I'm going with the Flames. But also, like, the Penguins had their great run, and they are way past that time of needing to shake things up, and it's getting very messy as we are watching unfold before our very eyes. So it's a mess in Calgary, but not like that.
The only thing you've got if you're a Penguins fan is you get to look at the past, and eventually you'll get at least 3 number retirements, and 4 guys will end up in the Hall of Fame. So you'll always have the memories. But the short term, we've talked a lot about the Flames are taking their medicine now. The Penguins are going to have to take one of the biggest doses of medicine in the history of the NHL at some point in the next year, a couple of seasons. Like, once Sid, Malkin, and Letang are done, that team is going to be Blackhawk Sharks bad. So I think definitely you would want to be the Flames going forward.
Yeah, and we'll see if the Sharks and Blackhawks are still hanging around in that same tier when that time comes, rather. But wow, what a fun exercise, because it puts it into perspective that maybe things
it could be worse.
Yeah, like
it could be worse.
Absolutely be worse, and it's always a nice reminder. But do we have anything else we would like to add before today ends?
I'm gonna go send our boss an email and ask him if I can play outside.
Honestly, that sounds like a great idea. If you're listening and you're waiting to go outside, go outside. But make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames before you do any of that. You can find us on YouTube and wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at JustBelmosto and at Nick Zeraris. And we will see you tomorrow.